Hey everybody out there, my name is Dragnix, and this is Cross of the Dutchman. $8.99 comes out on the Steam store today. It is an RPG based on the folk legend Pier Gerlofs Donia, and I'll put that word on the screen because I probably horribly mispronounced that. It is a Dutch folktale, but before I begin, I want to make sure you guys know this key was obtained from the developer. He reached out to me to cover his game, so that's what I'm doing at this point. Now, let's get right into the gameplay, shall we? Alright, we're starting at Chapter 7, which is actually pretty far into the game at this point. Now, Pier is a farmer who's just trying to make a living, and what's happening is the Saxons are coming in along and causing problems for this village. Basically, what this causes is a resistance to sort of rise up against them at this point, and the story, again, is based off the folk legend Pier Gerlofs Donia, as I mentioned before, in sort of a generic kind of way. It doesn't go into the detail that the folklore goes into, but you know, as a core element sort of surrounding this, it does the job. I feel like the people who designed this game did have a appreciation for that old folklore. Now, I'm going to get into combat a little bit later on here because I want to go into detail about it, but into this next section into the map, and this is, you're going to see the same sections over and over again, we have a stealth section. Yep, that's right. RPG with, action, combat situations. We have a stealth section to start off here. Now, a lot of people have probably heard me on this channel say I'm not a fan of stealth. And in particular, this stealth isn't exactly the greatest. As you see here, I'm just walking along. I'm not really doing much in terms of, sneaking up on things. Basically, if I go into a light, they're going to find me. Now, one of the problems that the game immediately presents is this slow-paced nature. Not only with the stealth section, because the stealth section can be sort of frustrating in itself, but it's just, you have a lot of walking. You have a lot of segments where you're really just sort of taking in the sort of, environment. And while the environment isn't necessarily the worst in terms of, like, graphical quality and things like that, it's not anything that, is really fun to look at. And in particular, when you've seen it for the third or fourth time, there's no reason for you to look at it again. Now, is the stealth work? I guess. I mean, the thing is again, you're basically sneaking around. You have no abilities other than just watching where people go and trying to do things. You also have segments like this where it looks like I could walk in there, but in fact I can't. And that can cause, you to actually get caught at that point. Now, I've made it my way across at this point, and now I'm going to get into the more combat situations. Now, there is a problem with overall story sort of continuity. Like, for example, he's defeated hundreds and hundreds of those guards before, but for some reason in that segment, if he gets caught, then he gets captured. I'm not exactly sure why. And then all of a sudden, you're changing into this. Now let's talk about the combat, because the combat is very basic. You have a quick attack and a special attack. You have two things. You have your fist and a sword. You get the sword, halfway through the game, but the fists are a little bit faster, deal a little less damage. The thing is that if you're going to go from an RPG standpoint, you're going to make your game based off that, you got to have some sort of depth to your combat system. And to say that this combat system has any depth whatsoever would be a falsehood. Basically, you hit the A button a bunch of times, you do a special attack when you get enough people around you, that's it. The combat is the low light of this game, and unfortunately, it's what you'll be doing a good amount other than walking. And you see things like this, like more DF-181 soldiers. I think there's a certain word missing there. I think that is a bug. I have crashed once or twice in this game. And in particular, performance-wise, when trying to record, has been a major issue. Fraps dropped about 15 frames per second. I've had major problems with quality in terms of the OBS portion because I couldn't get Shadowplay to work. Overall, the game just has a lot of underlying issues. It seems like there's an optimization problem. Now, the thing is that I want to say that, I like stories. I especially like folk stories. I'm a fan of the old Greek mythology and things like that. But what the problem here is that the writing does not portray it very well. In particular, the problem here is that especially when you get characters together, you feel like you know, they're missing something. They're not really into the situation. In particular, you get situations where you have somebody traveling with you, and they'll stop you and say something that really doesn't make a lot of difference. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, you can see here that the AI is not exactly the smartest, because I can just sort of run around them at this point with no problems whatsoever. There's my special attack. You can really sort of exploit the AI, although once you get a sort of healing potion, in terms of like you get more healing and for a permanent upgrade, it is rather easy to sort of exploit it in terms of wait for your health to sort of regenerate over time. Now, you get a situation like this, you got to find your way around the crowd. Again, I would love it if they would have taken this to the next level, but it's pretty much that they've blocked a certain path off. You have to go around at this point. Again, nothing special here. The problem here is that it's boring, it's repetitive, and unfortunately, when you put the word RPG as a tag on the game, it's really got to have some depth to it, at least in my opinion. And unfortunately, I'm about 2 hours into the game, and I've already got about all but, I think, 6 achievements, which is a major problem. Again, you're not getting a bang for buck here, unfortunately, and especially with the combat being so straightforward and dull. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm back to this part at this point. Well, the game crashed. It's crashed a couple of times on me, like I mentioned before, but in particular, that portion stopped everything and I had to restart. Now, the game's difficulty isn't that hard, so it's not like it's a huge setback at that point. But it's more sort of annoying more than anything else. Honestly, I mean, the problem I have, again, with games like this is, you know, the developer reached out, and I appreciate him reaching out and take a look at his game, and it's hard to necessarily criticize some of this portion when I understand the budget concerns. I can understand, you know, that this takes a lot of effort to make this main game, but when I compare it to other games of the genre, it just doesn't hold up. The combat needed something else to it, whether it be a guard mechanism, whether it be a roll mechanism. It's basically hack and slash at this point. And yeah, unfortunately, because of that, I mean, you get bored really fast. Unfortunately, even though you have upgrades, which are only limited, it's limited to your ability as well as your health and stamina meters, there's just nothing here to keep your interest over time. It's been done before. Games like Bastion have done it a lot better than this, unfortunately. And while I will admit some of the art does work, especially in the cutscenes, again, it's not the greatest artwork necessarily, but it works in terms of the style. It just unfortunately falls short overall as a game. And unfortunately, because of that, the elements of the storytelling that would be interesting sort of fall apart at that point. Now, you see there, I actually took damage purposefully. I'm waiting to do my punch attack to sort of kill a lot of people at once. As you see there, that was an upgrade portion, which is, again, great, but, you know, it just doesn't hold up. Overall, unfortunately, I have to say that Cross of the Dutchman just gets a pass in my book. Unfortunately, it just does not do enough to really go with the $9 price tag that it's got. And unfortunately, it just doesn't do enough in terms of the story elements. It doesn't do enough in terms of the combat and the RPG elements. And it seems to be very short for what I'm seeing here. And unfortunately, that's going to make a difference in a game like this. All right, this is Dragnix signing out. I hope you got an understanding of what Cross of the Dutchman has to offer. Again, I will leave my review in the description below. I'm always looking for feedback, so again, leave it in the comments section below, and I will see you all later. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this content and want to see more of it, you may want to hit that subscribe button on the left-hand side. If you like this video and want to see more of this content, take a look at this video on the left-hand side as well. And if you missed my last video, take a look at the right-hand side. Once again, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.